This is Vince Russo's The Brand.
What's going on, everyone? It is I, the Kingpin, King of the Streets, and welcome to another edition of Wrestling with Tragedy, case number 75. Hey, another great episode. This is part 2, along with my co-host, Piers, the King. Trying to give you a good monarchy, but Piers Austin, the legend, the man.
The dad bod god, baby.
The Kunga linguist. Yes, you go. The Kunga linguist, like Joe Gertner. But hey, man, I'm pretty excited, man. This is part 2 of the Ted Bundy story. So before we get into that, let's just give our sponsors a shout out so we can give them praise. Like you said, pause for the cause of who pays our bills. I'm stealing some gimmicks here. So let's get shit started. Help Fate. There you go. I'm afraid of Health Fate.
Healthvape.com is your healthy vaping alternative, ladies and gentlemen. All of their products have no nicotine, no harmful, addictive, or harmful chemicals, and they are vitamin infused, guys. So if you're going to start vaping, or if you're a smoker and you want to quit smoking, or if you're a normal vapor like I am and you want to get your health kick, go over to healthvape.com. Get this to be the transition off the nasty stuff. Get onto healthvape.com. Use promo code MWAPOD to get a 10% discount at your final purchase.
And this is the one I can flow with, man. Sleeves, one of the greatest sports athletic company I ever came across. If you need something for your athletic needs, sleeves, headbands, mouth guards, they got it all. I could give you a list of them, but then the show will be over. But if you go to sleeves.com, use promo code MWAPOD, you'll get 10% off. But my favorite is the dirty boxes. It's very entertaining for you and your loved one, whoever it is, will get a kick out of it. So definitely check out sleeves.com. Tell them the Kingpin sends you, Piers Austin sends you, Wrestling Tragedy Approved sent you.
Oh, yeah.
It's funny. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, there you go. What were you going to say?
Well, I just want to let the fans know the reason that we always laugh about Health Vape is because I have a hard issue with the C's. I give it a hard G. I could say nicotine when I'm focused. But of course, when I talk, my accent of New York, I give it a G, so it doesn't come out. So that's why we always laugh when that word comes out. I have to really focus on that word. So, but anyway, brother, part 2 of the Ted Bundy, one of the devious serial killers in the United States history. Just to give you guys a quick recap, because I know a lot of people out there are familiar with this individual, but, maybe not everything. So just a quick thing, man. Ted Bundy, was, executed in Florida by the electric chair in 1989. He was born on November 24th, 1946. He was narcissistic. He was into necrophilia. He was a rapist. He was back in the 70s. He was just ridiculously feared. But he was the most intelligent, to me, serial killer out there because he used his charm, his looks, and his well-spoken manner to get the job done. But just to let you know that he was his parents, was a single mother, had him when she was 22. They think his dad was a Air Force veteran and a Penn State graduate named Lloyd Marshall. So also, if you didn't know, Ted Bundy was also a graduate from the University of Washington with a degree of psychology in 1972. But again, this is something that we just wanted to go over a little bit so you guys weren't familiar with Ted Bundy. But go ahead, Piers, you could kick it off right now. Just wanted to give him a little taste.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things we didn't cover in last week was something I've just recently found out, that Ted's mother was a single mother. So he was born in the 1940s, which at the time, having a child out of wedlock was frowned upon. So basically the grandparents raised him as if they were the parents, and obviously, and then it came out later that, from his mother, that she was his biological mother. However, both his grandparents were mentally ill. His grandfather was known to beat his wife and his daughters as well. So Ted had a very tough upbringing there. And one of the things I found, where someone who grew up in the same neighborhood was Ted, that it came out that his grandfather actually raped his mother. Like the grandfather raped Ted Bundy's mother.
Yeah, I heard about that.
And Ted Bundy was the product of that rape. So essentially, his grandfather was his father.
Yeah, and even on his birth certificate, father was stated unknown. That was also one of those things that. But again, it's just a rumor. There's nothing to pinpoint that it was his grandfather, who is his dad, like Luke Skywalker. I am your father, but that was one of the rumors that his grandfather was his legitimate dad.
That's some crazy ass shit, because like you would think that if there was some form of incest there, that like he would have had some sort of abnormality. Like, wouldn't you think?
Not really. I mean, look at look at England, using as example of the royalty. They had that's what they called it, blue blood. You know, they married their sisters and relatives. I mean, there were probably some abnormalities, and some people I know. Oh my God, he was the king of England, but now I forgot. Richard the Lionhearted. He had a curvature of the spine, but I don't know if it had anything to do with you know, incest or anything. But but things like that could have happened because you're mixing those gene pools is not no bueno.
100%, man. But like, still, that's a pretty fucked up like thing for it to come out. But one of the things I heard was like when Ted was a child, that he would actually go and terrorize other kids in the neighborhood, like drag them into the bushes and like take their clothes off them. You know, he was very much a kid that liked terrorizing other people, like, you know, inflicting power upon people, which, you know, looking at his later in life and the actions that he did and the crimes that he did, you know, do you think that like these were all obviously signs to him becoming a serial murderer?
Well, I mean, absolutely. I mean, think about it. Ted Bundy started his life as his mother's secret shame. You know, basically that's what it was. You know, I mean, he was the illegitimate birth, humiliated deeply by religious parents. So they were religious. You know, that's a no-no in the Bible. I mean, it's something that might cause resentment. You know, because picture it, you're in the house and your grandparents might treat you differently. You know, say things that are inappropriate to you because you're illegitimate. So again, I don't know what happened in the house, and I'm just speculating. But then, you know, there could be a very hard upbringing for the mother and the child.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think like one of the things I heard that what Ted did as a child, he actually grabbed a stray cat, and tied it up and hung it from the washing line, like the clothesline, doused it in lighter fluid and lit the cat up. And like one of the people that they were interviewing in this documentary that I was watching, she was saying you could hear the cat scream, and by the time someone got there with the hose to extinguish the fire, the cat had already gone, and it just couldn't handle it. But like apparently Ted was just standing there watching this happen.
Yeah, well, I mean, think about. I mean, I totally agree. I mean, that's just very, very strange. I mean, it's hard to, because I've done a lot of stupid stuff. You know, I mean, kick a dog. Yeah, I mean, no, I don't condone it and stuff. But those are hard things to pinpoint. Like if your kid has some mental issues. I mean, at the age of 3, he was fascinated with knives. That's when he was into that as stuff, and he was a bright, shy kid, but he was doing a lot of things that were out of the normal. You know. I mean, also when he was a teenager, Bundy was like walking around looking in people's window and not even stealing, but just like, just
lurking.
Watching, lurking and stuff. So those are little signs that show that. I mean, if you look at it from this standpoint now, because he's a serial killer, that's the red flags. But at the time, he's just a kid that's just curious, and I mean, think about it. Playing doctor. Everybody played doctor when they was a kid.
Yeah.
Now, if you look at it from this standpoint, right? That's some deep. Was he touched? Why is he acting that way? What is he going to be a? You know what I mean? Like, the teachers be like, oh, that's not normal and stuff. Yeah, it is normal because I used to do that shit, and it's just a normal thing of a child being curious. But now, if they did it, teachers be like, "Where did you learn that? Why are you doing that?"
Deeper investigations into it.
Yeah, which probably ain't nothing. it's probably is nothing. But of course, the parents be like, "Why is your son acting this way? Why is he touching girls?" I mean, it's a fine line where is it normal? Is it strange? It's just a kid's curiosity. But it's hard to distinguish, like,
Yeah.
oh, this kid's going to be a rapist because he's slapping girls in the butt in the playground or lifting their skirts or showing his junk.
Yeah, but I think as well, like torturing animals and like dragging kids off and taking their clothes. Like, I think as well, like you look at the time frame as well. Then, like they probably didn't have mental assessments that were too clear in a lot of the stuff that was happening. Like later on
Now,
down.
again, I'm not condoning it, but again, I told you the story in ECW where we took one of the guys and stripped him naked and threw him out of the hotel room, and we're grown adults. So again, is that normal? Nope. But it's just because we were just cracking jokes and having fun. Again, it's hard to distinguish an action like that to say, that's disturbing. Like you could teeter-totter either way. Think about the joke of certain pro wrestler picking up beer bottles with his butt. That's strange. I told you that story, but again, it's like it teeters.
Oh yeah, but we're talking about someone who was a
Oh yeah,
serial murderer, and like all of like his past,
But that's
actions as a child. These are all things that obviously you look at, the mentality and the psychology of a serial killer. These are the early steps that they do before they go on to, harming other human beings.
But you're looking at it from a point now that you know who he is. Yeah, absolutely. You could dissect that whole thing and just go, wow, this could lead to this and that. I mean, it's a puzzle. It's a trail with breadcrumbs that leads to that to the beginning. But if we're using our kids, if your son or my daughter, even though your son is younger than my daughter, if your kid was doing stupid stuff like that, you won't bat an eye. You would just say, stop being stupid. Don't stick marbles in your nose and freak out. You know what I mean? Like those are the things that. But then if he was a serial killer and they go back and say, man, he must have had issues sticking marbles. You mean? You could diagnose anything and try to connect it. It's hard
they go back and look for different things to go over. But one of the things that I actually found interesting was the Carol. Just trying to think that
Kingling.
No, Darouche.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm thinking
Carol
of
Darouche.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Carol Darouche. So she was at a shopping mall and she was approached by Ted.
And which number of the victim is she?
No, she actually wasn't killed. She was kidnapped, and she was the one where they in Utah, he was arrested and sentenced to between 1 to 15 years for the Carol Darouche.
But she could still be number one, because even though he didn't kill her, she was still a victim. Like that was his first attempt.
No, it wasn't his first attempt. There was other murders happened before that, but
okay,
she got away. So what happened was he approached her in a shopping mall and said, "Hi, I'm a police officer. I'm Officer Detective Roseland or something like that.
Rosebud.
Rosebud. Sorry.
Yeah."
And he said, we've just caught someone trying to break into your car. Can you just come and confirm that like nothing's been taken? And she goes, okay. They went there to the car. She looked at the car. Everything looked fine. She's like, yeah, it's fine. He goes, okay, can you come down to the substation? And so you can get a statement, etc. And she was like, yeah, no worries. And he went down to like this and took her to this back of like a laundromat. And he tried to open a door, but couldn't get in. And he turned around and said, oh, they must have taken the station. Let me take you. And as he was driving with her, she basically was saying, like, he sort of started acting a bit strange and started sobbing. And then they had she was like trying to get out. She broke all of her nails off her fingers. He tried to handcuff her as well, but she got one. He got one of the cuffs on one of her hands, but didn't get the other. And she was punching. She got her way out. An oncoming car was coming. She dove into that person's car, freaking out, crying. And then he went on to the next county or the next town. And that's when he actually murdered a 17-year-old girl.
And what year was this? I mean, I know it was 1974, but what date was this that occurred?
Let me just bring that up for you, the exact date. So the Carol Darouche.
Well,
Which
I
one
got it
would
for
be-
you. November 1974. So
Yeah, there
basically,
you
he was already he already had victims in his on his forte at the time. But yeah. So that was in November 1970, November 8th to be exact.
Yeah. So,
Okay.
yeah, she got away, and she was one of the survivors, and she actually said she had survivor's guilt for the longest time as well, because it's like, how did he, like, I get away from this and this other person didn't? You know what I mean? Like, it's a pretty much, it'd be a crazy situation to be in that whole scenario, and to be like, you know what I mean? Like, I got so close, like, she could have died and been killed, and she was one of the lucky people who was able to get away.
I mean, there's a lot of lucky people that got away from Ted Bundy's, because he was working the gimmick of, having the arm in a sling, being a respectable guy, very well spoken, well dressed, but also, I mean, if you really wanted to go back in time, I mean, you got to look at the first, basically one of the 26, well, he said 30 victims that he killed, but there could be more than 100, but, like Johnny Lentz, she was 18, she's a survivor. She was, it was on January 4th, if I recall, 1974. A lot of these things happened in 1974, but, she was a student of the University of Washington, and then she was raped with a bedpost, but she was a survivor, but she survived the attack. So, she was, again, there are victims that survived from the Bundy serial killing spree, but she has like a lot of, damage to her head, if I recall.
Oh, absolutely, man. Like that, because some of the attacks was like, all of the attacks and murders were so vicious and bloodthirsty. Like, even some of the skulls, that were dumped in the one place, where it's like, he severed someone's head, man. Like, that's pretty fucked.
Did they
The
find
whole
out who the
thing's
head
pretty fucked.
was? How many heads did he sever?
I believe there was about 4 that they found, but they found,
And
like, in the one place, like, he'd actually taken the heads from a different location and put the heads, like there was some from different states, and they found skull fragments all in this one particular spot, like this national park.
okay, so but I know they had one called a girl whose head was decapitated was named Roberta Park. She was 20, but that was on April 17th of 74. She was abducted in Oregon University, and then and her skull was found during the same search on like Taylor Mountain. That
Taylor Mountain, yeah, that's the one that I was just talking about.
Okay, because that's where they found the skull of Susan Rochcourt. That's another skull that they found.
Yeah, so I think they found about 4 there for memory.
Yeah,
I had information about 4.
I mean, another one was Donna Gail Manson. She was 19, but that was on March 17th, March 12th of 1974, which Bundy did confess to that murder. And also he said he burned her skull in her girlfriend's fireplace. Liz Kendall, he burned it in the fireplace. Took her skull and put it there. So that's the third, but I can't recall the fourth if they were able to identify it. I'm saying they would have, but I just can't remember if they did.
Did you listen to any of the confessional tapes of Ted Bundy?
Absolutely, man. I mean, the guy, I listened to his interview. What about it?
One of the things, like, I found, he's very articulate, he's very well spoken, and and the level of charm as well. Like, he doesn't fit the thing of what you think a serial killer would be, or a murderer. Like, he comes across as like a very well educated, or
Which he is,
like very well educated, very well spoken, articulate person. However, like, when he's talking about the deaths, it's almost very chilling to hear him talk about it. Wouldn't you agree? Like, it's some of the things that he says, just it really sort of sets the chill down your spine.
Well, just curiosity, and again, I'm just asking you to fill in the for the show. So, what do you think a serial killer is supposed to act?
Well, that's the thing. I think you look at someone. I don't know, man. Like, you probably don't know, but you probably, from everything that I saw, he was someone that you would least expect.
Well, you got to look at it like this. I mean, everybody's vision of a serial killer is always the ghoul, the guy who's all creepy looking. But a lot of famous, I mean, a lot of famous serial killers were just pillars of the community, from John Wayne Gacy, who was a construction owner, to, of course, Ted Bundy, to, Dennis Rader, who was a dog catcher, and also, no, was he, and he was an inspector around here. And I mean, and Ted Kaczynski, who was a serial killer. But again, once they left, they lived a normal life. I mean, let me just go back. Like Dennis Rader, he was a pillar of his church. He was a Boy Scout leader. I mean, it's just that you put this facade, but once you walk out that door, the real, you take off the mask, and that's when the real killer is out there. But when your next door neighbor could be a serial killer, and you never even know.
Oh, I'm 100%. And one of the things I did hear the police interview with his girlfriend, Elizabeth Colfer, or Liz Colfer, and she even said that he was saying to her, I've got a problem. Like I'm just trying to stay focused to be a normal human in society. I get these thoughts. But I mean, like, it's kind of like it sounded like he was giving her a confession without giving her details of a confession, if that makes sense.
Well, I mean, yeah, I mean, because he was torn, because a lot of serial killers don't know why they do the things that they do. I mean, his girlfriend, Elizabeth Cofer, she was a struggling alcoholic, and single mom, and he took care, Bundy took care of her, and he was warm and loving. So he just confided in her, and stuff. But of course, he didn't want to, you're like giving those hints. But again, I mean, there was a lot of serial killers that just didn't know why they did what they did. Like, I just don't know.
Well, she actually went and started working with police and giving them information, because she originally was very anxious because he did fit the description originally when they were starting to look for him before he was arrested. He drove a Volkswagen Beetle. The person who said was a Volkswagen Beetle. One of her friends actually called the police and said, "Hey, look, we think blah blah blah," and they said the car that the perpetrator is, or the criminal, the killer, was a bronze Volkswagen Beetle, but he had a beige one. So that's why they never really gave it any thought after that for a period of time.
Okay, so what was the reason why she went to the police?
Because once he was arrested, everything started to make sense. And she started, obviously, she started putting things together. And then she sort of reached out to the GBU task force that was put together for this.
But when did she start to suspect him?
She started to suspect him when they started seeing, like, the sketches of him coming out. I believe it was around the same start, like when he first started getting charged, and he looked like he was being sentenced for the Carol Duranche thing, because that was around 1975, I believe he was arrested, and then that's when it was shortly thereafter she started working with them.
Well, the reason I was asking is because in 1974 she was, what made her suspect him? It's just because of his weird behavior, and she was questioning why he was keeping a meat cleaver in the desk. And because that's the first sign that she was putting those little pieces together. But what was the caveat? It's like, why are you keeping a meat cleaver in your desk? And he was always using his charm to deflect the topic. So I mean, those
gaslighting the answer, sort of thing.
So then she secretly went to the police with this, suspect that he was involved in the local murders, but they didn't believe her, because again, he was a pillar of the community. I mean, he was involved in a lot of programs. I think he was even doing like an emergency service that he was working as, I remember, but I can't pinpoint it. But yeah, he did have a criminal record. He would, like I said, they didn't believe her.
Well, one of the funny thing was, like, he was, I saw one of the interviews that they did with one of his friends, and he said they all stood around, like a bunch of guys were standing around saying, "Oh, if we ever find this guy, this is what, macho bullshit type of thing." And they had the sketch of the person. They all went around. He said it didn't look like Ted. He said straight out, he goes, "It did not look like Ted Bundy."
What, the sketch?
The sketch, yeah.
But how many
But he,
sketches that you
oh,
that you
they had over 100 possible suspects. So like the look of the person, probably the race of the person probably changed like 3 or 4 times.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, those expert sketch artists back then, and again, they were very good sketch artists. But remember, we're sitting there talking, and I said, "So, Pierce, can you describe him to me?" Yeah, he had brown hair, curly, like this. No, just the hair looped a little bit. Okay, well, what was his eyes separated? Were they closed? Or did he have a
Yeah.
crooked eye? Did he have a gap in his tooth? So even when they start doing the composite of this individual, sometimes it's just like, okay, it kind of looks like the guy, but it's not. But then, of course, when they capture him, they go, "Behold," and then you see the similarities. There you go. Oh yeah, it's a sketch. It's a decent sketch, but it doesn't put put it together. If you look at it from without him standing next to it, so it's hard to
Well,
do that.
also, this guy said that Ted Bundy actually said, he's like, I know how they could do it and get away with it. And they're like, oh, yeah. Like, how do you think they'll do it? And he goes, take the person from one county, kill him in another, dump their body in another county, then dump their clothes in another, then dump the murder weapon in another. Because what he was saying is that if like highway patrol found bloody clothes on the side of the car, that's where it would, like on the side of the road, that's where it would end. They wouldn't go and think, oh, what, this body, this missing person. Same thing with like if they found like a broken murder weapon that may be in pieces, like a broken knife that may have like a splatter of blood on it or whatever. So, and this guy actually said this was, looking back at it, this was obviously his way of trying to flaunt it to them, to saying, and that's a serial killer's mentality as well. Hey, how can I put something out there to push the limit? And it's like, you fuckheads don't even know, like, what I'm telling you right now. You know what I mean? Like, it's basically his way of saying, I've done this.
Yeah. I mean, I totally see your point. But I mean, it's just hard. Like I said, he was just very slick. And a lot of people didn't believe. People coming up and saying it was him, that they suspected him.
Well, they also said during his court proceedings, he was very arrogant in court.
No, but that's when he was being his own lawyer.
Yeah, he was very arrogant. He was very boisterous.
But you have to be an attorney. I mean, you have to be arrogant. You have to be confident, because if you show a chink in your armor, that shows weakness and shows that your case doesn't stand. So of course he's going to be very arrogant, especially since how he is. Plus, he practiced law. He was practicing law before he.
He wasn't practicing. He was studying.
No, practicing, going to study law. Yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah. But do you think, like, how many unsolved murders do you think could be linked to Ted Bundy?
There's a lot. John Wayne Gacy, same thing. They only found a certain amount of bodies in his house under the floorboards of his crawl space of his residence, but he said it was more. They killed more.
Yeah. But why do you think that Ted Bundy decided to start to talk and started to confess to these murders?
Because he's arrogant, man. I mean, he was you're talking about when he was on death row?
Yeah, like when he started to confess.
It's a rap, man. It's a rap. I mean, now his claim to fame. I mean, he's getting the attention that he wants as a serial killer. Well, why take it to the grave? He wants to confess. I mean, there was over 100 murders that he did, but you only confessed to like 30 something, 36, I think.
Yeah, he can
36.
30. But
36.
But if there was hundreds, why wouldn't he be confessing to all of them? Do you think that he forgot it, like couldn't lost count?
No. I mean, sometimes serial killers keep things as a personal treasure. Like they don't want to release everything. Again, I'm not. I don't know the serial killer mind, but I'm just going off from my experience in regards to the way they think and the way that they want to hold secrets to like that, because that's their power.
Yeah. Because one of the times, because we did say on the first episode how he escaped from jail. The second time, well, he escaped from incarceration, I should say, because yeah. One of the things, like when he escaped, and before he was, when he escaped the second time, after moving to Tallahassee, he broke into Chi Omega sorority house of Florida State University
And
and
what year was
brutalized.
that?
I believe that was 77.
Okay.
Was his second escape?
From the in Colorado, right? No. What was it again? Tallahassee.
Tallahassee.
There you go.
Where's Tallahassee in the States?
I think Tallahassee. Keep talking and I'll find out.
Yeah, so he escaped in December 30th, 1977, and was arrested on February 15th, 1978. During the second escape,
It's in Florida.
Oh, right. So the second escape, when he went there and brutalized 4 women, he killing Lisa Levi, who was 20 years old, and Margaret Bowman, who was 21. He also raped and killed a 12-year-old Kimberly Leach less than a month later before succumbing to his final arrest. That's, dude, like...
Well,
the thing is, like, why would his victims go from, like, most of his victims are all around that early 20, like late teens, like 19 to 23, 24-year-old. But very rarely, like the 12-year-old that is completely, like, that wasn't like in his wheelhouse though. Like that wasn't fit the demographic of most of his other victims.
Well, the thing was, okay, of course, this happened on January 14, 1978, when he did that attack at the Chi Omega house. But the thing was, is that, remember I told you in the first episode that he spoke to his attorney, and he called his attorney, and he even called and said, hey, the secretary was like, hey, I got a Mr. Rosebud on the phone that wants to talk to you. So when he took the phone call, and he's like, hey, Ted, you have to turn yourself in. Because due to client attorney privilege, you can't relinquish anything. It's an attorney. So when he was talking to Ted even asked him, hey, whether they have the death penalty, does Florida have the death penalty? And he was like, yeah, and that's why, and I'm not saying that's why he reasoned when he went to Florida, but why would he ask him about that? He probably wanted to get stopped. Because again, I mean, what was the most damaging evidence for him was that it was the teeth marks that were on the victims' bodies.
Yeah.
He had a teeth impression on there. I don't know where, but that's what was a definitive match to Bundy, and that was a wrap right there.
Yeah, and that's where, like, obviously everything started coming undone, and he really sort of started to get charged. But he also married while he was in jail, and
Carol Ann Boone.
Carol Ann Boone, and they had a daughter in 1981. I believe his daughter was born.
82
or 82. And he actually had, basically from paying, the prison screws, a little contribution in order for him to sort of have some one-on-one time with Mrs. Bundy. And that's when his daughter was conceived.
Yeah, I think the girl's name was Rose.
Yeah. She now goes by a different name, I believe, and lives over in the UK. Like, she doesn't live in the United States anymore.
Well, you got to, man. I mean, the problem is that when you're the son of a serial killer, and when you're a relative, look, Lee Harvey Oswald that killed Kennedy. I mean, once you're, and even if it's not your fault, I mean, you're not even wrong, but you're related to the guy. So when they say, hey, your brother's Ted Bundy, or you're the daughter of Ted Bundy, they're going to look at you like, you know what I mean? You're labeled. Yeah. So sometimes you have to leave the country to get a fresh start, because England or even Australia, I mean, if you move to Australia, nobody's going to really know who Ted Bundy is. They do, but they don't, because Australia has, like, I don't know serial killers in Australia.
But also that's back in 1970s as well, where there's no internet. There's no, you know what I mean? Like, how much international news was really going on back in the 70s?
Yeah, but it's infamous. I mean, it's not like
it is now.
Yeah, but that's the thing. So, but again, you want to escape that regardless, because people read the paper, people, and even the internet. But look, like I mentioned, Australia, I don't know your serial killers. I don't. You throw out a name, at me, and I'm like, I don't know. Look at the one of our episodes about the biker gang massacres. I never heard nothing about that, but it's famous, and I have the internet. You know what I mean? It just depends 100%. How far you want to go in the rabbit hole to look for shit like that. So of course you want to start a fresh start. If I killed, my dad was a serial killer, and I went to Scotland to get away from that shit, and nobody's gonna know.
Oh, 100%.
If I mention that name, my dad was so and so.
Yeah, no, you completely make it very clear with that. So, but what do you think? As far as the context of him having a wedding and romantic attention inside, obviously, custody and so forth. Yeah,
conjugal visits. That's what they call them when you have
against prison rules. They had no conjugal visits, but
no conjugal visits.
No, so he had to sort of bribe prison screws in order to be able to get that time.
But bribe them with what? Cigarettes?
I don't know, money?
I don't know about his financial status, man. I mean,
he was on death row when the child was conceived, when his daughter was conceived.
Gotcha.
So
okay.
And even then, like it's like I said, it kind of like, imagine like growing up and being like, yeah, you were conceived, your dad was on death row.
And again, that's the reason why people want to leave. They want to get away from that. You don't want to be known as you were born in a fucking prison, or you were born
100%.
with your dad from death row. I mean, you're labeled. No matter what it is, you're always going to be labeled as that. So it's an escape. I would want to escape. I mean, that's just start fresh, man. Just a clean slate.
Yeah, man. And, after Bundy was convicted for the sorority killings, Judge Edward Cowart followed the jury's recommendation and imposed the death sentence. Then remarking on Bundy's considerable intelligence, the judge expressed befuddlement as to why the killer would have chosen the path that he had. Judge Cowart said, "Take care of yourself, young man. I say that to you sincerely. Take care of yourself. It is a tragedy for this court to see such a total waste. I think of humanity that I've experienced in this courtroom. You're a bright young man. You would have made a good lawyer, and I would have loved to have had you practice in front of me, but you went another way, partner."
And I saw that when the judge said that. I mean, he was very charismatic. That's the thing about him.
He was, and like he even had like almost like a cult following of people. Like he had like his Mormon congregation that had like 40 plus people sign this letter and send it into him, wishing him the best and Godspeed and all this sort of stuff. And then obviously we mentioned Carol Ann Boone as well, who was another supporter who he became romantically involved with.
A reporter, you said?
No, she was Carol Ann Boone. She became.
She became.
She was a supporter of his.
A supporter. I thought you said reporter.
No, reporter. My apologies. I was like, fuck. I was trying to guess what I was saying. But no, she was a supporter of his.
No, I got you. I mean, but yeah, I mean, the funny thing about serial killers is that there's a lot of serial killers that once you go to jail, there are it's groupies, man. I mean, you got your rock groupies, you got your wrestling groupies, and you have your serial killer groupies. I mean, people find these individuals intriguing, and I don't even know, because the fact is, I just know from the fact that they're groupies like that, but I don't know what the reason why they're so not inspired, but like in awe, like, ooh, he's so sexy. Oh, he's so smart. I don't know. I don't get it.
But you know what I find weird is like they got like Carol Ann Boone married him in 1980, but divorced in 1986. Like, did she think he was going to get out within 6 years? And after 6 years, she was like, yeah, no, we're good. Like, this is not going to happen. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it kind of seems weird that they would get divorced after 6 years. Like, what do you think would have led to that? Would it just like her going, I just can't do this anymore?
Because, I mean, there's a possibility he would never have gotten out, I mean, Again, there's other people that might stick with the. I mean, Charles Manson. That was another. He had groupies and they stuck with him to the day he died. But I'm not going to say they wanted to marry him or love him or whatever. But again, she probably had realized that he was never going to get out and she needed to start her life fresh. But again, I'm just speculating. Why she made that decision.
Yeah, 100%.
Well, the thing is, so let's just get with the final thing right here. So on January 24th, 1989, he was executed at 7 a.m. in Florida State Prison. They used the chair that was all known famously as Old Sparky. So he was lit. I don't even know what happened to that fucking electric. It's probably at the Smithsonian or something. But once he got killed, everybody outside was cheering and fucking setting off fireworks when Bundy was executed. So people would just really picture that, setting fireworks out in front outside the prison for his untimely demise.
Man, that's because people were just like, this fucker, about time he had to go. But that's the thing, man. We don't have the death penalty in Australia, and I know that only some states. I believe we did, but it was hundreds of years ago. I can't even remember. It's never since in my lifetime or even my parents' lifetime was there a death penalty.
I have a question.
My question was, from 1975 to 1989, how come it took him so long to execute him?
Because one thing I remember reading is that there were still victims out there, and he also was kind of like, if I gave him one victim, then it could be leading into another victim. That would have extended his stay from being executed. So there's parents and families out there that needed to have closure of what happened to their child. So I remember something that he was giving them stuff, and he was also helping them track down serial killers. He was trying to to my opinion, trying to extend it. If he was being helpful, we need him, because he was trying to solve
murders.
I think it was the Green River Killer.
Yeah, I think we covered that in the first one we looked at. He was working with and he also was in talks with the guy that shot Lennon. Yeah,
so those type of oh my god, now I forgot the guy who shot Lennon. It'll come to me, but but the thing is that he was helping him. So if he would have able to help him to solve these murders, to figure out these crimes, and also the victims that he killed, that his stay basically like a stay of execution, it would prolong his execution date. So I mean, that's just my opinion that why he was doing it. But just quick question, man, before we close off the show, what is your world, in Australia, who is your world's famous serial killer? We have Ted Bundy, we have a lot, but we're using Ted Bundy as who is your best known, this guy was the serial killer of Australia.
I don't think you could really say best known, but I'd probably say some of the most infamous people would be Ivan Milat, who is the backpacker murderer. So he basically went across murdering backpackers, hitchhikers, and stuff like that. Another one would have been Martin Bryant, who was the guy who was responsible for the Port Arthur massacre in Tasmania. But like I said, I wouldn't say best serial killers, but I'd probably say people that were most infamous in some of the biggest tragedies that our country has seen.
Okay, cool, man. So if you fans out there want to know more about those type of serial killers in Australia, hey, put it in the chat. Not in the chat, but just email us or put it in the comments below, and we'll definitely address it. And if you don't, we'll still probably address it, but we just want to see who's interested in it. But anyway, hey man, we're closing up at the final show. I wish we had some more time, because again, this is still got a lot of meat on the bone to even deduce why he was helping the FBI and all these other people to solve these other crimes. But let's go get those beautiful sponsors up and kick this off right.
Absolutely. First up is healthvape.com, your healthy vaping alternative. Guys, all of their products are no nicotine, no addictive or harmful chemicals, and they are vitamin infused. If you want to check out healthvape.com, check out some of their vape and pod products by using promo code MWAPOD to get a 10% discount on your final purchase, baby.
There we go, man. And, definitely if you want to get your sport athletic wear going, definitely check out sleeves.com. I mean, it's definitely one of the greatest websites where you can get athletic accessories that you could use in any type of sport: soccer, football, rugby. They have arm sleeves, they have headbands, they got mouth guards, they got shin pads, they got everything that you need. Definitely check out their dirty boxes. It's definitely my favorite part of that website. But definitely use promo code MWA Pod to get 10% off. And again, tell them the Wrestling with Tragedy sent you, and it's also Kingpin approved.
Oh, yeah. And as always, you can get an exclusive first look at all of our episodes by going over to russosbrand.com, patreon.com/RussoTWC to get an exclusive first look at every single episode of Wrestling with Tragedy. We are the Russos Brand Crack Investigation Unit. You can find us on YouTube all your podcast platforms, baby. Find us on social media everywhere. Find ECW Baldy Angel on Twitter, Piers Austin at Twitter. And guys, give us a follow. Let us know what you want us to cover. Send us a comment. Send us an email. But until then, guys, it's time.
Oh, hey, Pierce.
Yo,
you know how I could make you break character?
What's that, brother?
This is Vince Russo's The Brand.